Hello, everyone. Welcome to episode X of the My New Normal podcast. I'm here, Dr. Teresa Larson, with my husband, Per Larson. We are doing this podcast, this particular one, in Mumbai, India. We are on a month-long workation, call it, here, visiting my husband's sister. And what better time to introduce this new podcast that we're putting on our Movement RX platform. So my husband is going to interview me on this podcast and get out all of the whys behind what we're doing. Yeah, all the nitty gritty, who we're interviewing, why. Stuff. Yes, the secret sauce. So for all of those who are new to listening to this channel, want to know more about it, this is the podcast. This is the episode to listen to, what this whole thing is about. So my new normal theme. Okay, with that being said, let's get this party started. Let me get my coffee first.
It's coffee talk.
Yes, this is coffee talk.
So, thank you, Dr. T. Nice to meet you.
Oh, it's a pleasure to meet you.
Yes.
How long have you been married for?
I can't do that on camera.
Okay.
So it's, I'm excited to talk to you about this. The idea of a podcast has been thrown around inside of our company for some time. Was a matter of time and kind of what the topic was, but we settled, or you have come up with this idea of my new normal. So tell me about why.
My new normal?
Yeah. So we're sitting here like we're on a couch. Is that we have our conversations in the evening on the couch?
Yes.
You know, relatively relaxed. Maybe not coffee in the evening.
Not coffee in the evening.
And I'm usually not taking notes during those conversations the way I should.
Yes. That's a given.
Maybe this is the start of something. So
remember what I've been telling you every evening. It could be a book.
No more books.
So you want to know why my new normal?
Yeah. So why? So let's talk about first why the title. So let's use that as a jumping off point. So my new normal. Why that title?
So it was inspired by this group of individuals I work with called adaptive athletes. Most of society would see them as the disabled population. They're in a wheelchair, they have a missing limb, they have traumatic brain injuries, but they don't identify as disabled at all. They identify as adaptive. And one of the things that comes up in our training all the time is, okay, what was isn't what is anymore. What you had, the function that you had, the movement you had isn't what you have now. So you have this new normal. I kept using that phrase a lot. You have this new normal movement pattern, so make the best of it. And I thought about it so this adaptive population really inspired this theme of the my new normal. However, if you look at, it's a theme that can go into everyone's life, whether you've lost a loved one or you're a new mom or a new father or someone who has changed jobs or changed careers significantly. You have this new normal space that you're in. And for most of you that follow what I do, there's always a mental health component to it. Mental health is just as important as physical health and tending to the mind, like tending to the body. So the people, and I learned this through the adaptive population, the ones that thrive after these traumatic incidents that most people would consider a nightmare are the ones that have accepted this new place they're in. And they do the best with it. And they find the resources they need to. They find the tribe. Well, a lot of them didn't find it right away. Over time, they found it. So that's why they're thriving. It's all too often we see in society that people like new moms who want their old bodies back, individuals who are injured who want, maybe in their 30s, want to be as physically fit as they were in their 20s. Well, they can be, but they're going to be as physically fit as they are in their 30s, this new space they're in. And they have to work with this injury they're dealing with versus brushing it under the rug and wishing and hoping that they were like what they were in their 20s. They need to accept where they are, and they can even be better than they were before. So I think it's a theme that goes beyond just this adaptive population. It goes into every aspect of our lives. And I have had, if I even just look at my life, I've had many new normals. Getting married is a new normal.
The best normal ever.
Yeah.
Come on.
Having a child and running a business is a new normal. And to expect things to be the way they were before a child is not going to, it's only going to make me suffer. A child brings great joy, but it also brings a lot of challenges. So it's when people, what I found through research and interviewing these adoptive individuals is that people, they suffer less because they've accepted this new space and they've made the best of it.
Sure. So we all have a trajectory in our life, but that trajectory changes here and for whatever reason, some issue.
Yes.
It sounds like we'll talk more about this, but the first season of the podcast is focusing on those who have adaptive injuries, wounds.
Yeah, so what to expect this first season is, I called it, so this podcast is seasonal, and I did that because there are so many themes that can go into this My New Normal. But the first season...
we're going to get to that. This is how we talk in real life, too.
Okay.
I want to get to that later. We'll dig into that, but I wanted to just kind of mansplain for myself.
Mansplain. Okay.
So you're using the adaptive population as kind of an easy entree to understanding My New Normal, because for them, it's if you've lost a limb, okay, life has changed, and adapting to it is adapting to it mentally and emotionally as well as physically are the important components, and some really cool stories.
Yes.
So, but before we get to that, let's talk about why are we doing this on the Movement RX platform, and we'll come back into kind of the themes of adaptability and My New Normal, but why are we doing this
on Movement RX?
On Movement RX.
That is a very good question, Per Larson. Well, we are doing it because it has a well-being, wellness theme to it. And the focus of Movement RX, the company, is helping people take ownership of their health and giving them tools, movement, mobility, stability tools, mindset, mind training drills to help them in their life right now. So the My New Normal is just another way of helping people out there. It's another media channel, so to speak, that's going to help people take ownership of their life right now.
So in the conversations that she and I have had about this, as well as our team, there's been a realization over time that in a physical therapy practice, which is where Movement RX started, and in the online platform for the programs that we sell, that so much of the success comes from working through the mental hurdles and the emotional hurdles versus just the physical. I'm going to do this reps, this scheme, this mobility technique, whatever it is. As much as those physical tools, it's the emotional and mental tools that seem to make the most difference.
Yes.
What has struck me in talking to you and all our therapists that we've had over the years is that so much of those visits are spent kind of coaching, just not physically coaching, but like, and I don't want to say life coaching because that has kind of I'm not fond of that term, but certainly there's an emotional piece to it that people want to share and just want to voice and need the help with. And it sounds like that's...
Well, yes. And so the emotional intelligence that goes into, there's an emotional intelligence building component to this. In a physical therapy practice, when you're in a one-on-one session, someone's coming in with a vulnerability, a physical vulnerability, and we're there. We can be there stoic and just tell them to do various exercises, which is very commonplace in the PT and musculoskeletal world. Just do these exercises and you'll be fine after 6 weeks. That's not true. People need education, and that education oftentimes revolves around coping with this injury because people want to have a functional life. They want to enjoy their life. Some people just want a quick fix, and underlying that, most likely that's not the case. But most people that come to us just want the education on, okay, how do I use this pain as a way to improve my life? And they need the guidance there and the not just being a cheerleader, but the actual tools mentally and physically on how to manage this injury to help make them even better than they were. And that's, I think, the component that's very inspiring about being a PT, is that there's so much power when you choose to shift your thinking of, how is this injury is no longer a threat to my well-being. It's a challenge to make my well-being better. And that is a really powerful shift when people think like that. And even people that have come in with comorbidities of depression and anxiety, which are so common, and things that I have struggled with too, is that see these things as tools to learn how to become even better and improve your life. This anxiety and depression comes from somewhere. So if you figure out how to cope with it and where it's coming from and tools to help calm it, it can really help you in your life. And it doesn't require medication most of the time.
So let's tie back to your story, because we're kind of on the path of talking about why, so helping people understand why my new normal. For you, this has been a culmination of a process, from stuff that your book covers, and I'll ask you about that here in a second, but stuff that your book covers, as well as the experience that you've had with the adaptive classes that you've been teaching, and so this. But maybe shed some light, and some folks may know the story, may know it very well, but many may not. But tell kind of your story about your new normal, kind of what you've found.
Well, so my new normal, I've had many new normals that I could speak about. And over the course of this podcast lifespan, you're going to hear little bits of each of them, I would fathom. But the big one, I published a book 2 years ago called Warrior, and it is a story of my come to wellness. It was a big turning point in my life. It's not just a story I like to tell because it's, this is my trial to triumph. It's a story of, no, this is taking ownership of my life for the first time. I grew up with 2 brothers and a father. My mother passed away from breast cancer when I was 10, which definitely had an impact, being a sensitive young woman, an impact on me and how I perceived the world and interacted with the world. So I had to build this sense of, I guess, thick skin that didn't run too deep. Like I gained a lot of self-esteem from accomplishment. So that self-esteem was very superficial, as you can imagine. And it led to, I accomplished a lot of things in sports and even in academics, which was very pleasing to my father, but it also caused me to rely on winning and accomplishments for feeling good about myself. And I know that's very relatable to many people, especially women who have this perfectionist mentality of, if they don't do something perfectly or win or don't get approval from others, it can cause them distress. So as I grew up in college, I played collegiate softball and then went into the Marine Corps as a lieutenant. As an officer, my struggles with self-esteem, just the pressure, I should say, I put on myself just got more heightened. Mm-hmm. And I was more fearful. I remember hearing a similar story, not with what I struggled with, but from Carolyn Paul, who was the first female firefighter in San Francisco, who expressed her fear of letting down her fellow firefighters than actually taking care of herself. And I felt the same with my Marines and my teammates. It's like I felt more fear of letting them down than actually the fear of letting myself go or being sick. Mm-hmm. And I had to appear and look perfect. And so that you can imagine going from softball, collegiate athlete, where, we're Division I, we're in the Big East, we're always vying for the first place, to the, okay, now we're going to war. And there's all of this pressure of being a 22-year-old young lieutenant, which I joined the Marine Corps for that reason. But I ended up developing an eating disorder called bulimia that really took over, and it took over my psyche. And now what I know about the mind is there's a conceptual mind that it's not a big space in our mind, but when you have disorders like this, anxiety, depression, poor coping skills such as eating disorders or other addictions, it like literally floods this conceptual mind and doesn't allow you to see, to enjoy the vastness of who you are. And so it clouds everything. And so as a young lieutenant, as much as I performed really well in the field, even in Fallujah, Iraq, there was this demon inside of me that like wouldn't let myself be okay. And so I used bulimia as a way to cope with the stress I was feeling. And so eventually I realized, okay, I didn't want to admit I had a problem, because if I admitted I had a problem, then my career was probably done. And this was back in 2005. So I had to kind of come to grips with, okay, if I know I'm really sick, I know that this is going to affect someone if I continue down this road. Like, I'm at war. I'm searching for landmines and running convoys and picking up female insurgents and returning. I'm not like doing desk jobs. If my malnutrition and my lack of attention to detail and focus is affecting me, then one day it's going to hurt someone else. And I would not be able to live with myself had I not, if I didn't ask for help. Yeah. So I ended up asking for help, and then basically my recovery unfolds from there. For those of you that have followed Warrior, if you want to read more about it, there's a book. It's a book on Amazon. It was published by HarperCollins, and it goes into basically that come to wellness from asking for help. My life just got harder, but in the end, time did heal me, and time and attention to what I needed to do to be a better person and be a more whole person did happen. But it took time, and I would not be where I am today with as much passion and persistence with what I do had I not gone through that. Yeah. So there's a lot of gifts that I learned from that story, from that experience. I don't wish it upon anyone, but I do know people out there. I do know that story very much relates to many, whether you're a male or female, whether you have eating disorder or not, that struggle with, I'm too scared to ask for help. I struggle, I don't know. I struggle with anxiety, depression, or maybe you have an addiction, but you haven't asked for help because you're afraid of what people think. Well, unfortunately, not everyone's going to like you and appreciate you or what you do. However, there are going to be people that do. And you have to want to get better, and you have to know that there is a way and that this is your life. It's a very long life. And so the people that don't care and that don't appreciate you will go away over time, and the people that do will stick by your side.
I guess that's what you said, that just there is that's part of finding your new normal, is
yes,
jettisoning the folks that are getting in the way of that and finding folks that help. But so in the book kind of talks about come to wellness, and we'll get to some tools here in a second, but just if I might opine briefly on so the experience with someone who has suffered from bulimia. I think growing up as a male in America, it's stereotypically think that, come on, it's just, I understand, I don't understand. I really didn't understand. Being married to you and seeing, not knowing you during that time, but seeing that process and that those tools have to continue, because it's not, you mentioned heal, it's healing to me is a spectrum, and what I've observed with you and what we've talked about relative to the eating disorder as a way of coping that gets transferred into some other way of coping later on. No longer bulimic, but there are still those same struggles that pop up. And so the tools that you need to use you need to do those consistently over time.
Yes. So
that's your new normal, right?
Yes.
There's no we're good. It's a continual process. So let's talk then about those tools that you started with and kind of how those manifest today, even though there's no act of bulimia currently.
Yes.
But there's still a need to utilize these tools to maintain it's still your new normal.
Yeah, so the key is no one ever just arrives. And that's something I've learned is that while I am thankfully a recovering bulimic, recovering from bulimia, I still struggle with some of the same thoughts. They will come up, transient thoughts that can make us sick. Anyone who's listening can relate to that, just the poor thinking patterns that we can have at times based on triggers. And so it's the tools I learned over the years from therapy and then from me seeking out various kinds of therapies and reading and researching on my own. Some of the tools that have very much helped me maintain and improve my mental health is one, functional fitness, not abusing exercise anymore, but using it as a tool to calm my physiology. I enjoy CrossFit, I enjoy yoga, I enjoy just doing straight up simple bodybuilding type exercises, not for shows, but for just strengthening my body. I enjoy doing mobility work, soft tissue work on my own with lacrosse balls or yoga tune-up balls. I really believe in the power of touch and movement. Those tactile things really help calm what I've found and researched one's physiology, which means there's less tension you hold in your body, and which means your mind won't race as fast. And so the things that you are so heightened and focused on become less important in that conceptual mind space because it takes you away from that spiral. So that is one tool. Is I don't train 6 or 7 days a week like I used to, twice a day, which sometimes when I think about it, I'm like, I really did that. Mm-hmm. Now it's 3 to 4 times a week and some kind of mobility every day. Not always with tools, but maybe it's just stretching. Maybe it's just rolling with the ball. But movement-wise, in terms of strength training and conditioning, it's 3 or 4 days a week. The other tool that I use is breath work. But it's a specific kind of breath work called a grounding practice that I learned through a mindfulness-based meditation coach. And through that, it taught me so that's another tactile tool that helps calm my physiology. Because what I found is that these triggers that you get from thought, email, person can cause tightening in your body. And when I became aware of that excessive tightening and learned that through biofeedback to calm that tightening, that thought trigger was less important in my mind. So breath work is a really simple thing that I've added into my days. Sometimes it's a 20-minute meditation in the morning. Sometimes it's simply I'm in the car and I'm focusing on counting my breaths, and nice, long, and slow breaths. And research even shows people with anxiety and depression have excessive tightening of the pelvic floor and poor breathing patterns. So a big part of my physical therapy practice has been diving into treating those things first for people, because everyone struggles with the diaphragmatic breathing, the pelvic floor tightening. And I found it to be very rewarding because for me, I used to be scared of being alone with my mind. I didn't want to be alone with my mind. I didn't want to think, because when I think, my mind can go out of control, would go out of control. But we need mind training. In the reading I've done, we need mind training just like we need physical fitness. But through physical fitness, through this tactile world, touch, movement, breath work, deep breath work, that actually helps calm the mind. That is part of mind training. But you have to be consistent with it. So it's not like I can't get away with, I'm going to do meditation or breath work once a month, or I'm going to do movement once a month. That will take its toll on me over time, and I will start to get caught up in these downward spiral effects. Now that I'm years away from years in recovery, I am much more aware of these triggers and what they can do, and the fact that they come and go because they're transient, but I still know that consistency will keep me kind of on the above the line thinking, which I need to do to be a good health professional and business owner.
So so the breath, we've talked about this in our company. The breath seems to be the way to connect the neuroendocrine systems as well as your physiologic systems. So using the breath in both directions to body work plus breath to help your thoughts and how you mind, as well as mindfulness and breath work to help the physiology.
Yeah, so using breath work as a way for performance, if you breathe efficiently, you're going to get more oxygen in, which means more productivity, both in the workplace and in the gym, but also a more stable spine. And so when you do focus on it, it helps you focus in on what the task at hand that you're doing, a squat, a paper you're writing, whatever it is. And then breath work for meditation purposes, that's almost a little bit harder because you're not doing anything but sitting on the ground or laying down and breathing. So your mind wants to just fly everywhere, but you constantly have to bring it back. So you need both. That is something that I have found I need both in my weeks.
Yeah. So let's talk about, I want to get into your typical day in this new normal and using these tools. But let's first talk about triggers for a little. And we all have triggers, we all have issues, but we're talking about your recovery from bulimia, and kind of how some of those same pressures get manifested today, be it not bulimia, just in other ways. In my time with you, I've seen you learn that there are different triggers that you have to be mindful of. So let's maybe share a little bit about what triggers have you found are your personal ones. And they may relate to folks watching or they may not, but the concept is that there are things out there there are triggers.
Well, I think triggers for me can usually revolve around performance still and accomplishments. So I still want to accomplish things. I still want to make a difference. I have found that with having a child and now running 2 companies with my husband.
I'd like to meet this husband, guys.
Your Movement RX and Your Movement RX is our digital company, and then Movement RX is our physical therapy side of the company. That it's just added more pressure, and I have actually put pressure on myself to accomplish, and so I have to keep that in check. Running a business, being a new mom, not wanting to just take a break for 5 years and raise a child and run 2 businesses is not what I want to do. I don't want to take a break. I enjoy what I do and I want to continue to help people. But how do I do that and manage this joyful little person, Magnus, as well as a relationship with you and these companies that I love and that we're growing and that now we have full ownership of? So those are the triggers that come with that are, am I doing enough? What else do I need to be doing to help grow it? And through breath work and movement, as well as another tool I use is writing and research, just researching mind training, other methods of mind training, researching things that the adaptive athletes struggle with. Like I like learning. Through writing and learning and researching, that also really helps me kind of stay in the present.
That's
and
your
help
quiet
people.
time.
Yeah.
Your productive quiet time.
So the quiet time is important. So it kind of keeps me in check of like what I'm doing now is enough. And I don't need to do more. And the other component is what I'm doing part of the same vision. So adding in this new normal podcast, it can't be something that's separate, pie in the sky. It's got to be this. We want to help people take ownership of their health through telling our stories and through telling in the first season, which is called Tales of the Adaptive Titans, telling these adaptive stories, which I found extremely profound, and kind of the why behind starting this podcast, because they all have these stories, what we would consider nightmares, experiences, and they have learned to live optimally in this new normal space that they're in. And so for me, as I'm still navigating this new normal and still learning better tools and ways to stay consistent and be inspired, I've taken a lot of energy and strength from them, which is why I wanted to start the first season with them.
So we were going to talk about your typical day, but you kind of talked about that in your answers before.
A typical day would be, there's no typical day. That's one of the questions I actually ask on the podcast. You'll find a lot is with everyone is, what is a typical new normal? And nobody really has a typical day. And that's what's kind of exciting, is that there are things I get in every day: movement, breath work, I eat, and there's work that I do, but it doesn't look the same every day. I don't have a 9-to-5 job.
As far as the tools that you've acquired to adapt to your new normal, what are some constants? And again, may not be every day, but
I just discussed them.
That's what it is. So breath work, movement,
quiet time.
So you start off just there talking about the folks, or the Tales of the Adaptive Titans being the thrust of this first season.
Mm-hmm.
Talk about some highlights. What can people look forward to? So most of these have been filmed; they're just being edited, and there'll be a sequence in which they're rolled out. But
I like to work ahead.
Yeah. So tell me, and whoever chooses to listen to us, ramble on our couch here.
Yes. Okay. So this is how we work together as well. He operates and runs everything. I'm kind of the worker monkey. So, in a way.
Dance monkey, dance.
Dance monkey, yes. So, okay. So this Tales of Adaptive Titans, you're going to have, so far we've filmed 20 episodes, and we have about 5 more we need to do for this season. And they're also going to be in between. So each episode is going to be displayed over the course of every couple weeks. So if you've ever checked out Humans of New York, it'll be on the Dr. Teresa Larson Facebook and Instagram feed, as well as a little bit of Movement RX too. You'll see these pictures and stories of these individuals kind of painted over the course of time, and along with their interview actually being released. But in between each interview, there's going to be little educational sessions every once in a while, such as we have a bunch of athletes who have spinal cord injuries, so you'll learn about spinal cord injury. There's a couple athletes with a traumatic brain injury, so you'll learn a little bit about that. So some of the highlights, we have a wheelchair basketball coach. We've got a wheelchair rugby player. We've got a seated volleyball USA player on the USA team, who is a friend of mine, and she was helping do search and rescue during 9/11. We have a fascia icon. We have a self-defense expert on, people that you're fairly familiar with, if you're in the movement and performance world. And we have people who have experienced musculoskeletal and systemic disorders that are unexplained, really, and they're in a space where the medical system isn't really helping them out. And we also have a colleague of mine from the Marine Corps who was just diagnosed with a terminal illness, and what she is doing about this diagnosis of breast cancer, and knowing that there's a timeline to her life, and she is a new mom. So there are some stories of heartbreak, but stories of living your life to the fullest right now, and stories of major struggle, mentally and physically, but how these people have dealt with these struggles and are really embracing this new normal space and working to help others.
Well, just in knowing some of these folks and listening to some of the interviews as you were doing them, there'd be some pretty inspirational stories across the board.
So that's why we wanted to start this first season with this group, because they are the why behind doing this. And I think their stories can impact anyone listening, whether you're a business owner, middle management, you're an athlete, mom, parent, all of the above. I think this can help you because you can very much relate. You might not relate to the actual injury, but how they got through it and how they're living their life now is very motivating and powerful, especially when you use the tools you've learned from them right now in your life.
Yeah. So let's talk about the takeaways then that you want people to have from the season and the individual episodes.
So the takeaways are the fact that you have power, that you believe that you have power over your own health right now. Like, there are things that you can do to help yourself now versus wait for a doctor or health professional or coach to tell you what to do. I find all too often in the medical world and even in physical fitness world that people wait for someone to tell them what to do something about their health. Don't wait. Use these tools and start doing something right now. All it takes is one step in front of the other, 10 steps at a time, one step at a time, however way you want to think about it, to reaching a goal, to embracing this new normal. It's being attentive to the way you think and attentive to the way you move. And so the takeaways from this podcast, and especially this season, is whatever you learn from each episode, apply to your life immediately.
So we talk a lot about it at Movement RX, and it's in our tagline, get better, faster. The get better, the faster part of that is what you're talking about here, is taking your own health into your own hands instead of waiting. You get to a result far faster. And the types of topics that we'll be covering, or that you'll be covering with the athletes and folks, are topics that most health professionals aren't going to be able to focus on because of a silo, because they're just complex. But these themes are pretty universal in terms of what people can do to take health into their own hands. So both for yourself, for a loved one, I encourage you to take a listen to some of these episodes coming up.
Yeah, we hope that you listen to all of them and learn and apply them to your life, and also share them with someone you love or care about. So that's the power of making this movement grow, is sharing. And the other component to this is that while these tools are going to help you right now, we also offer programs through Movement RX that can help you as well. If you're dealing with a musculoskeletal injury that results in low back pain, shoulder pain, knee pain, we have those programs readily available that are very healing, very focused on movement, mobility, mindset, stability, and you can find those on movementrx.com. And we also have, for the adaptive athletes and coaches out there who want to coach them, a course called Functional Training for the Adaptive Athlete, which is also on movementrx.com. So we ask that, biggest things, subscribe, listen to this, share, please. And if you find that this podcast is really helpful, please write a review on iTunes. We would love it. And then email us. That would be great. I'd love to hear from you. My email is Teresa, THERESA.Larson, LARSON, @movement-rx.com.
Well, this is my first time hosting, so I have to ask the guest boss, is there anything else that you would like to add before we break?
No, I think that we covered a lot. You guys got an idea of what my new normal looks like. And I have a whole new plethora of them now with a new baby and a couple businesses, and I'm navigating the challenges and successes of that. So as we roll out these seasons, you're going to get more insights into that. And as we're living abroad for a month, we're going to be doing this again, what that's like. But ultimately, this podcast needs to be motivating and inspiring for people to take action in their life now. And that's the whole premise behind this. So there's nothing like you applying it right now and sharing it with someone you love. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chris.